And we'd like to welcome you back to another episode of the Outside 50 podcast presented by US Footy News. As always, I'm your host, Rick Shaibani, and joining me are Tara Silky from Denver and Ben Martinez from Austin.
G'day, Rick. How you doing? G'day, Tara.
How's it going, everyone?
Doing well, doing well. We'd like to get to our guests shortly, but before we do so, we'd like to have a brief word about what the USAFL press release that came out this morning. Most of us were emailed it. Club presidents were informed. Basically, a statement because the league had previously said that May 1st would be the deadline when they would make a decision about regionals and, to a lesser extent, the rest of the season. As it stands right now, we know more than we did, but there are still a lot of question marks about it. What we do know right now, regionals has been canceled. They're going to kind of experiment with something a little bit different in terms of like small regional tournaments within certain parts of the country. Obviously, certain states are opening or reopening, I should say, different compared to others. I know Texas is slowly getting there, Ben, and we just heard the other day here in LA that the mayor is going to take between the next 2 and 6 weeks to kind of stagger the opening or the reopening of the city. So every part of the country is different, but the USAFL had to make a decision based on what is going on right now and what they're going to be able to predict for the next few months. So, what do you guys think of the decision, and what are your thoughts heading forward, and how do you think the clubs are going to adjust?
I think that, it was probably the right decision to make just because everything's up in the air right now, and I figured they were going to cancel regionals anyway, so that wasn't too big of a shock for me. I think it's going to be definitely interesting to see how we can do the regional tournaments, especially with some of the states that are so large. It's going to be maybe a little bit easier for states that are closer together or states that have multiple teams in them. But for other states or smaller clubs, I think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle. So I hope there's a plan in place to be able to help those clubs out.
Yeah, you would think that, like, because again, travel is going to be kind of limited, or at least we're assuming that it'll be kind of limited once all the lockdowns are lifted. At the same time, you never know if those same grounds that we were going to use for regionals are going to be available for other events later in the year. So there's a lot of balls in the air, I reckon, and it's going to be interesting, like you said, to see how it all kind of transpires. I know here in LA, once the second we're able to train safely, we're going to be training. But obviously, it's just
Definitely.
kind of a question of what can be rescheduled, what can't be rescheduled, what different teams are going to do with that weekend they had bookmarked for regionals. Because I assume there's going to be a lot of activity. A lot of clubs are going to want to try to schedule something for that weekend as a backup plan. So yeah, you never know.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Ben?
Definitely, yeah. Just to echo your thoughts, guys. I think that player safety has to come first. I think we were all fearing that news that we were going to hear that it was going to be cancelled. I was really looking forward to having another shot at Denver in a regional final. So, but look, I think at the end of the day, just to echo what Tara was saying, we need to put player safety first, and also it's great to see the league uniting at the moment, the clubs uniting, everyone getting involved in fitness challenges and preparing for the year ahead, in whatever shape that may take. So it'll be very interesting to see what the clubs come up with. Just to reiterate what was said earlier, I think that I hope that a lot of the clubs that don't necessarily have teams nearby can work out a solution so that they can get a lot of gameplay in, a lot of run in the legs leading up to nationals, and it should make for an amazing tournament come October should everything go ahead.
Yeah, it's gonna be fascinating to watch, and you never know, might set a precedent in the future with how like the regionals tournament style operates, and is it gonna change? Is it gonna go back to the way it was? We don't really know, and but as crazy as it might sound, I'm grateful because at this rate, the whole season could have been canceled, and at least we're gonna play some footy for sure. So I have a feeling that that we'll figure it out as a group, and hopefully we can just get back out there sooner rather than later. But anyway, like I said, we do have a great guest here today. Without further ado, we'd like to welcome Robbie Scarallo onto the podcast. He was the founder of the Tampa Bay Tiger Sharks, one of the new clubs that's sprung up in the Southeast in the last 3 or 4 seasons or so. And now he's moved back to New York. He's going to school up there, and he's going to be trying to play for the Magpies this season. How you doing, Robbie?
Yeah, well, thanks, Rick. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad you could come on board. And
Yeah.
it's funny because, like, when Kraz and I first started the podcast, we kind of wanted to speak to all the clubs of, again, the clubs that are 5 years or younger, essentially. And you guys obviously just started up in 2018. And since he's over in the Atlanta area, he really wanted to prioritize the Savannahs, the Jacksonvilles, all those guys. But we're just glad we could get to you now, even though it did kind of take a while. But yeah, we're just happy to have you involved, and tell us a little bit about how you guys started Tampa Bay and
Cool.
what you're excited to see from them in the future.
Yeah, great. Well, first I'll just mention you mentioned that I was the founder of the Tampa Bay Club, and just want to bring some clarity. Definitely was involved. Wasn't the only founder. There was quite a few other blokes that were involved as well. In fact, we all played together initially with another team in the St. Pete area for another small league, and that kind of just shifted. Things changed, and we didn't want to stop playing footy. And the opportunity was brought to us, that the opportunity to join the USAFL was there. So we said, yeah, let's do it. We want to play, and we want to be able to travel a bit and play some other teams. So that was a bit of a process, going from, hey, we're in an established club already, to, okay, this is now over, and now you got to, like, someone else who was running it before now kind of just dropped out for their personal reasons, and now we just had to kind of pick it up. So we didn't really know what to do. Luckily, we were in contact with the USAFL straight away, and they kind of gave us some guidelines, and we put together a board, and we sent out some material to the pre-existing players on the other club, and we got a board assembled, purchased some equipment, and kind of figured it out as we went, really. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, you guys kind of popped up because there has been like a history of footy in the Tampa region before, so there's always interest there, and it's a pretty big area too. You've got
Yeah.
Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, that whole area, and of course with Bradenton close by, there's obviously a ground there that's great for nationals.
That's right.
But kind of going back a little before we go back to Tampa, what brought you to the States to begin with, and how did you first get involved with footy?
Yeah, great question. My dad's actually American. So he moved to Adelaide when he was 9 with his family. That's where he met my mom. They got married, had us kids. And so obviously coming back to America was a bit of a natural kind of evolution or progression, if you will. All of his family was here in New York primarily. So we came as a family quite a while ago and lived in New York for a couple of years, and then moved down to Tampa, where I ended up spending most of my life. And yeah, a couple of years ago, I had been wanting to reach out to the footy club for probably about 4 or 5 years, and I had found them online, and I wasn't going to, because actually at that time I was about to move to New York, where I am now, and I was going to play for the Magpies back then. Things happened, I couldn't. 3 years go by, I end up going back to Tampa, long story short. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to bite the bullet, even though I'm going to be here in Tampa for a little bit, and it's going to be temporary. I'm just going to get some footying. So I started playing with that pre-existing team, as you mentioned, about 2 years ago. Even though I'm from New South Wales originally, my family originates from Adelaide. So I kind of really got into footy from that side of the family. So I'm a Crows supporter, first and foremost. And then second after that, Swans.
So you were born in Australia and grew up in Tampa, correct?
Yeah. So I'm a dual citizen. Mum's an Aussie.
Hmm.
I'm an Aussie, and then have the citizenship through my dad for America as well. So I can just go back and forth as I please.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Ben's the same way, right, Ben?
Same way, mate. Yep. It's a blessing, that's for sure, when you can do that.
Yeah, it is.
Good team as well, Robbie the Crows. So good choice there. So, being here in
Are
Austin.
you from Adelaide?
I'm not from Adelaide, but I'm an Eagles man, but I've adopted the Crows thanks to Austin. So yeah, I go. It's better than hearing Collingwood. I think we've had a few Collingwood answers, haven't we, Rick, on the
Too
show?
many.
Too
Too
many.
many.
Yeah, too many.
It's good,
Too many.
it's good to hear something different.
Right, right. But yeah, so what brought you to Tampa originally as an adult? What were you doing for work, and how did you kind of find yourself down there again?
Yeah. Well, again, immediate family was there, so that was always a bit of a draw card just to go back. And I was doing some work for a nonprofit down there, which actually ended up being very beneficial for the Tampa Bay Tiger Sharks as they started to pick up speed. And I was involved. I told them from the beginning, I said, hey, guys, I have a lot of experience with working with nonprofits and getting a lot of nonprofit funding and stuff like that. I said, so I really recommend let's set up the organization as that. That might be pretty standard among all the clubs. We weren't really sure. But again, not knowing exactly what was going on and what to do, we kind of just went that route, and we finally got that established and were able to get a lot of the Google nonprofit stuff in because of that. Free AdWords accounts. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but you can get $10,000 worth of AdWords every month with your nonprofits with absolutely no cost. You just got to sign up for Google and register your nonprofit account. So that's really, really nice. So they're running on that at the moment. And yeah, it's just able to bring that into as an asset to the club and help to bring some structure on that side where everyone else had some other experiences. Like we have the vice president, he's a lawyer, so he was able to bring that to the club and to the table and help with documents and actually help write up all the documents for the AFL as well as for the nonprofit status and take care of that. So fortunate to have a good array of skills and knowledge base among some of the players. Yeah.
So you're headed to the Magpies. What is your insight you can take from being in a smaller club to move to a more established one?
That's a great question. Insight would probably be something that really the Magpies I've noticed in the past few months actually already do very, very well. But I know sometimes with a large organization, you lose the personal relationship. Sometimes the mechanism gets so large that the individual kind of gets lost. I've noticed that in other organizations. Again, luckily, the Magpies do that pretty well. But backing Tampa, that was something that was very easy not to let happen. We were a small club. We saw it all, everyone every single week. If someone wasn't there, you kind of knew it, and we'd call up and say, "Hey, where were you? How are things going?" I had the privilege of playing with the late Pat Builder, who recently passed away, unfortunately, down in Tampa. Him, myself, and Tom, Matthew, and Claire Conley went up to go play with. Kraz invited us to go play with them back in July, which was a great treat for us. But yeah, that community, that individuality, I think is something that can't be lost. But again, from what I've seen in the Magpies, they do that really well. And I've not played with any other clubs, but I guess from what I can see from a distance, the other clubs do that pretty well too. I think that's the most important bit, really, is that relationship. Everyone wants to be needed, everyone wants to be included. So.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you've definitely developed some great skills that can translate to your new role with New York. And obviously, yeah, the Pies are a well-established club. Always do really well in Div 1. So it's good to see you getting involved again. Obviously, you were kind of in an unfortunate position having to move back there right before, a few months right before all this happened. So, yeah, but what's the biggest thing you're looking forward to in terms of being back in New York and having a chance to play for a Div 1 club again?
Yeah. So one of the big things would probably have to be, and the unfortunate thing about being in Tampa, it's not as big as obviously New York City, where we have tons of people and a very large club, is just having the ability to play more regional games. we didn't get into that a lot in Tampa. Obviously, that's picking up as the club is growing and as the relationship with the USAFL is growing. But while I was there for that short period, because I was just there for a couple months while the Tiger Sharks were in infancy, really, we only had that one game up in, I believe it was in Savannah. So that's probably the biggest thing for me is like, unfortunately, with this situation, it's kind of shot that in the foot. But yeah, being able to play regularly against other teams and being able to access a larger array of skill sets. Had some great players back in Tampa. I was able to learn quite a bit from. But now in New York, obviously, there's even more people and a greater spread of people throughout the week that you can potentially meet up with and link up with and have a kick or work on some drills and stuff like that. So until Corona's over, though.
That's great, Robbie. And Rick, I'm sure you can speak to this. I'm sure you've had a lot of experience playing against New York. I can totally relate there, what you've said there, Robbie. We've had on a few other calls where, we've with other guests where we talk about the benefit of playing, regular games, regular regional games against quality opposition, and also, just how that then translates into the development of your personnel. I think you're going to see that at New York. You only need to look at, kind of where they've come from in the last few years, just in terms of the volume and quality of competition that they play, not just at nationals, regionals, and then in between, they play the likes of Denver, they're playing Minnesota, they're playing DC regularly, they're then playing Austin and or be up against an LA. So you're going to get that variety that you're not going to get elsewhere, certainly.
Absolutely. And I think, pound for pound, blow for blow, I think the Pies are as good, men's and women's footy as any team in the country right now. Again, Austin, Golden Gate, everyone's chasing them for the most part, but New York, they're one of the most consistent clubs around. And I think it's going to be really good for you, Robbie, to get back into playing high quality footy.
Yeah, I look forward to it. It'll be really good.
So, obviously, as we all know too well at this point, New York has been obviously very severely hit in terms of the COVID situation. What have you guys been doing, practically speaking, just to stay positive, keep your spirits up, train on your own, hit the weights? Like, how has it been over there in terms of people just encouraging each other and getting around each other, even when there's all these unknowns?
Yeah, it's great. Well, one of the things that I know the Magpies had done, I wasn't able to enter or get involved with this, unfortunately, because I was busy that evening. But they did some trivia nights, or at least one trivia night, and over Zoom, and that's just a great way to keep that social interaction up. Again, having this club is fantastic. Playing the sport is beautiful, but if you don't have that relationships and that camaraderie, what is it about? So that's been good. They've been doing and having some workout sessions available. Again, things that I haven't been able to unfortunately engage in myself. I'm a full-time student. School hasn't stopped. I'm still going. I'm still working. And usually my days are about 10, 12 hours straight of just work between work and schoolwork. So I've had to kind of just do my own thing. Unfortunately, at this point, I don't really have close-knit relationships with any of the Magpies. At the moment, I went to a few trainings, but when I came here, it was just shortly before the winter break started. So, I don't have much of a connection. One of the blokes that I used to play with back in Tampa, he moved up here, and I believe he gets involved with the Magpies a little bit. And even though we're friends, we haven't even been able to hang out. Back in January, he said, "Hey, let's get together and let's shoot for around March," because we both had a lot going on. And obviously with March brought Corona, and we still haven't been able to queue up. So kind of just doing some workouts at home, trying to stay in shape, trying to get out as much as I can, which isn't very often, unfortunately. Had a bit of a walk today. Cardio is probably one of the toughest things, just trying to keep in shape that way. So yeah, it's not the easiest thing, but I guess where there's a will, there's a way.
Definitely.
What are you studying, Robbie?
Yeah, I'm studying to be an art director at an ad agency. So I have a bachelor's in marketing.
Great.
Yeah, so I've decided to go back to college. I'm 30 years old, doing college over again, and it's a 2-year program down in Queens. And yeah, so I really enjoyed working with the creative stuff. In fact, I did a lot of graphic design for the Tampa Bay Tiger Sharks initially. I've done a few projects here and there since I've moved back up. I designed their Guernseys, helped put together their website, which is just a Google page just to keep costs down. Helped design their logo along with another gentleman named Michael Taylor. And yeah, so I just love being involved with art and the creative aspect. And so that's what I would be doing at an ad agency as an art director.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And kind of going back to your background, Robbie, how unique was it growing up, as a dual citizen kid and not really having any footy to play growing up in America, even though I'm sure your mom's side of the family was very fanatical about the Crows and about footy. And what was it like, not really having that outlet as a kid, even though you probably would have liked to have it?
Yeah, it's a good question. The duality of having lived there a bit and living here definitely caused some level of confusion, just in general, not even related to footy, but just like what words do I say here, what words do I say there? It's funny.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys have all noticed it, Ben. I'm sure you struggle with this a bit too. It's like it's the same language, and yet sometimes it's so different. Sometimes I get these blank stares. So that's always been kind of interesting, and just also just different ways of thinking and just different ways of doing things has been an interesting thing to kind of straddle the line of. In regards to footy, yeah, obviously, when you don't have it, and I didn't know about the USAFL till probably about 5 years ago. But growing up, when you don't have it, you kind of just get involved with what the kids in the neighborhood are playing or what you're playing at school. So played a little bit of American football with my friends in the block. Did a bit of basketball, as most of us do. So yeah, you kind of just adapt. You just have it is what it is. So.
Robbie, did you find growing up that you were able to talk about the game as well to some of your American friends, just get them around it? How did you find that that went?
Yeah. No, I didn't really, primarily because I didn't know of or didn't have much access as we would today to resources, where we can, pull up YouTube and what's that video? What is AFL, right? That the AFL created. That's the first thing I show people when they're like, what is it? Because it just does a really succinct job of giving some good highlights. But, I didn't have that growing up. So to try to explain it, don't have access to a ball. So, playing with an American football is not quite the same. And then just trying to shift people's mindset of, well, I want to do what I know. It's kind of difficult, So you kind of just, I didn't even bother with it.
It is, mate. I just went for a run and I just did a workout this afternoon, and there was a guy in his driveway. He saw me with the Sharon and he asked what was that, and I think I explained it pretty well. But even after that, he was like, "Also, it's rugby." No, it's not rugby. Also, it's soccer. No, it's not soccer. Oh, well, then what is it? And then you're explaining it again, and then it gets to the point where you're just like, "Look, you know what? Go to this site, go to this link, check it out. I'm going to go for a run tomorrow. You tell me, ask me any questions that you have." It's you kind of do this Q&A session on it. If you're like, here's the link. Tell me what you think. So
yeah, that's right.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's so foreign. It's kind of funny that he said
Robbie,
soccer.
did you?
Go ahead, Tara. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, did I hear you correctly to say that you didn't even know about like the USAFL until a couple of years ago? Is that what I heard correctly?
Yeah, about 5 years ago, I think I may have stumbled upon it. Remember I was up late one night and I'm like, oh, I'd love to get involved with maybe playing footy. Let's see if they have it here in America. So I Googled it, and I remember finding the Magpies, because at that time I was preparing to move to New York the first time. And I had noticed, I was in Tampa at the time, that the University of South Florida had a team. By that point I had already graduated from uni, but I'm like, if I had known about this 6 years ago, I could have potentially have maybe gotten involved. But yeah, so that's how I learned about the USAFL. I don't think I even really knew about the league. Actually, even when I found the Magpies, I just thought, okay, it's a team. I don't know who they play. They probably just play themselves. It's just kind of a pickup game or some sort of a league. And they have so many people, they could probably do that. And then as time went on, probably realized that it was a national league.
Yeah, and like I said previously, again, there have been other teams in Tampa in years past, so there's always seemed to have a bit of a footy following down there. And again, like you were saying, there's new clubs in Jacksonville, Savannah. You got Fort Lauderdale there. Footy in the Southeast is growing very quickly, and obviously Kraz has played a role with that. A lot of other guys have played a role with that as well. So seeing Tampa grow even after you've left, Robbie, has been really encouraging.
Yeah, got a great team of people down there working on the board, helping to, like I said, great span of skills and knowledge. And they're, doing more than just trying to grow the club with players. They're doing a lot of, they call it doing nice things. So they're running like charities for Ronald McDonald, charity events for Ronald McDonald House. There's a local bakery in the area that they went to, and they did some fundraising for the bushfires. So, yeah.
Yeah, I saw you guys already got an Aussie cafe to sponsor you. What was it? A Walkabout Bakery?
Yeah, that's right. Walkabout Bakery. So they were pretty high on the list. We have a few other sponsors as well, which has really been nice. Kind of initially when we were looking at the name and Tampa Bay Tiger Sharks had come up, with my background in marketing, I said, hey guys, we have a big aquarium called the Florida Aquarium. I said, let's approach them. They can tie in with the fact that we're a tiger shark, and they might love that. And who knows what could happen. And one of our people, her name's Katie, she went to the Florida Aquarium, and sure enough, they said, we'd love to. We can't really donate any money, but we'd love to do some relationship events where you guys can do stuff here. We'd love to put a Guernsey up. The Walkabout Cafe put a Guernsey up. So it's been good.
Being sponsored by an aquarium, I reckon that might be a first in the USAFL. So that's really cool.
Yeah, you got to get sponsorships where you can, right? And especially when you're set up as a nonprofit, that's another great thing that you can advertise to them and give them as a little bit of a hook that, hey, you give to us and it's a tax write-off.
Absolutely. And a lot of people forget that all the clubs in the USAFL and the USAFL proper are nonprofits, like the 501c3. But yeah, so kind of looking ahead for you, Robbie, once you finish with grad school, do you see yourself going back to Tampa and playing with them again?
I'd love to play with them again. Got a good relationship with a lot of the guys and girls down there. I don't see myself moving back, though. My immediate family is there. My parents, my sisters, my nieces and nephew. So it's always a possibility. But I do love New York City. I do have a desire to maybe move back to Australia one day. Some good advertising in Sydney and Melbourne, but we'll see. My attitude is this: it's good to have a plan, but you got to be able to adapt and roll with the punches. You never know what the future is going to hold. And if I do move back, heck yeah, I'll be back in there with the Tampa Bay Tiger Sharks. I was actually going to go down for the Nationals and play with them, but unfortunately I had class that day. But it was like our first day of class, and I'm like, I can't miss this. So, but yeah.
So what do you see for the future of the Tampa Bay Tiger Sharks? So now that you're in New York, what do you see for their future? How do you see them progressing?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is just growth. I think that's something that we've always struggled with down there. It's getting the word out. And obviously it's easiest to kind of target Aussies in the area because you don't have to explain what the sport is. There's already a passion to get involved. So that was always my big thing is, hey, let's kind of target the Aussies that are here. And obviously we do need to target Americans too. But if we have a crowd and good numbers, it's going to draw Americans in and it's going to bring interest. But, another big hook was the fact that it's full contact. A lot of Americans really like that idea of having a sport that is actually full contact. So just really growing the club, I think, is going to be the probably the biggest hurdle for all clubs, I'd suspect. But I think when you start to get that growth, it starts to create momentum, doesn't it? And then again, you get people and it just brings people in, and then you have people, you can do a lot more things, a lot more social activities, a lot more fundraising for charities, stuff like that.
Yeah, I know Tara loves the contact because she always gets injured, but but no, yeah, it's
That's true.
I had to, sorry, but but no, that's good that you guys we follow you guys on social media, seeing all the positive things that Tampa Bay is doing. Again, it seems like there's already a really solid core group of men and women who are really passionate about it and who are dedicated to helping the club grow uh, rapidly. So,
Yeah.
yeah, again, I think there's a lot of potential, and again, you've got a pretty big metro area in terms of Clearwater, St. Pete, Sarasota, Bradenton. You know, you guys can definitely maybe even dip into a little bit of the Orlando area. So I think there's a lot of really positive things that the Tiger Sharks are doing, and I'm sure you're very proud in terms of seeing how far they've come without you.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And we've had pulled some players in the past from Orlando, so that's nice. Even though it's a 2-hour drive,
Hmm.
but one of the guys was from the Gold Coast, so he'd drive down. He'd love footy so much. He played, I think it was in the minor league, the academy for the Gold Coast Suns,
Oh wow.
and then got injured, and then came to do school here. But he loved footy so much, he'd drive that 2 hours each way every Saturday just to come play with us. So that was really good. And but yeah, being able to step back and kind of see them continue to grow, like you said, it, makes you proud, makes you happy. I want them to have a big team. I want them to keep doing and keep growing, and being able to not just grow the sport with Aussies, but obviously as the USAFL's goal is to teach Americans and grow the sport and the knowledge of it. So it's a lot of fun, and I can't wait to, whenever I go down to visit, I try to go and meet up with them. So I can't wait till the next time I'm there. And there's 5, 10 guys and girls I've never met before. That'll be good.
That's great. Yeah, I just wonder, like, do you have any insight on how the league and teams can actually help grow? So today, I was outside kicking my ball, and a guy came up to me and he's like, "Oh, is that a footy?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I thought it was," and he ended up being Australian, and he had never heard that the USAFL existed or that
Mm.
we had footy in the states, and he had been here for like 7 years. So I find that interesting that you also or haven't didn't hear about it for like the last 5 years as well, and this guy had been here for 7 years, had never heard about it. So I'm just wondering where that disconnect like is coming from, that people are not hearing that we have footy in the United States. If you have any insight about that from just learning about it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. For me, as I mentioned before, it was really came down to just a personal desire to play, and so I just sorted it out. But
Mhm.
obviously, that's not always going to happen, and not all your players are going to have that desire to like actively search it out or to even think about actively searching it out. But if they knew it was there, they'd
Mhm.
still play. Um, I think one of the big places that I reckon is a gold mine really is Facebook, and a lot of us are already using it quite a bit. But I'm in a
Mhm.
Facebook group for Aussies in Florida, one for Aussies in America, and then one in Aussies in New York. And none of them ever really
Mm.
post about footy. And so every now and then I drop a line about the Tampa Bay Tiger Sharks, or now that I've just recently joined the New York one, I'll chuck that in there because these are just random Aussies, um, not necessarily connected with the AFL, and yeah, they're already primed. So
Yeah, that's crazy to think about. In our case here in LA, we're parts of like the Aussies in California group, Aussies in LA group, Aussies in SoCal, blah blah blah. But yeah, social media plays a big role for us as well. In fact, one of our best players, Pat Nichols, he's the uh, the tall, skinny Fijian guy for the Dragons who kicks like 5 goals a game. Yeah,
gosh,
he's phenomenal. But yeah, he first moved here to LA around the same time I did in the summer of 2016. He works as a tennis coach here in LA, but yeah, he played VFL down in Melbourne. He was very highly regarded. His brother played in the AFL with the Gold Coast, and he moved to LA, and he was all depressed because he
Mm.
thought, "Oh, I'm gonna have to
No footy.
give up footy for the first time in my life." But yeah, he eventually found the Dragons, and it was just because someone invited him to the grand final party that we had. So you never know in terms of like, oh, which Aussies have heard of it, who hasn't, and also how can we connect with them and bring them aboard.
Yeah, it's a great point, Rick. Yeah, Robbie, I mean, just to echo what you said, I mean, I honestly didn't even know before coming here in 2014 that there was a side here in Austin. I didn't even know that there was a USAFL. I don't think anyone, certainly in my, in my club back home, and even in the league, ever talked about footy outside of Australia. So the fact that when I got here, it took me similar to your story. It took a couple of years,
Mm.
but I agree with you. In terms of what you said there, I think the more we're getting the word out there on our Facebook groups, whether it be LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, the various other avenues. Rick can even tell you the listeners to our podcast here all over the world. The more people are knowing about it, that's only going to help the game overall, and hopefully not just bring people here in the US, Australians over here, but get more Americans into playing it. And we've mentioned that on a number of podcasts how amazing it would be to see that have a flow-on impact into the national team. So I'm sure
Yeah.
Rick shares that sentiment.
I hate to use this analogy or metaphor, but it's funny when you see cultures that are kind of in another country than their native country, and then they find people who are also from that country, right? It's a bit like wildfire. They just get excited and, oh, you're from Australia too, and you start talking about, oh, this is where you can get Tim Tams. This is where you can get some Bundaberg. And you just want to share your experience of Australia here in America, or whatever your culture might be. And so I think that's actually a really great opportunity to kind of tap into, is that wildfire kind of mentality. Is if we can get some Aussies to know, hey, yeah, we have AFL here, the USAFL here, then when they find other Aussies who've recently come over, they can let them know. And that will just be a native kind of word of mouth thing. In addition to that, kind of just jumping back to your question, Tara, is that not something that we've utilized much with the Tampa Bay Tiger Sharks, because again, we've just gotten our Google nonprofits solidified. But using that Google AdWords grant, that $10,000 a month to help with advertising online. Now, I mentioned before the active looking. I actively searched out Aussie rules here in the States. Not everyone's going to do that. Well, with that Google AdWords and really utilizing, $10,000 a month in AdWords credit is a lot. And it's, again, zero cost. But now it helps to bring the message and the awareness of the club, the local club, as well as the National League, to people's eyes and their attention as they're, expats here in America, searching for maybe Tim Tams, or searching to see what the Swan score is, or the Crows score, or whoever it might be, and it just natively pulling up, hey, check out AFL, USAFL in your area.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, just to have those keywords and just being able to have more of a search function for players. I just think it's astounding every time I talk to people, especially from Australia, that like don't even know that we have footy in the States, because I think that's probably like one of the first things they would gravitate towards, especially if they're athletic people. And so, yeah, it just always astounds me that there's still that huge disconnect. And I'm an
Right.
American, and I've only been playing for the past 5 years, and, like, I've made it a goal of mine to try to get the word out as much as possible by joining clubs, online, and making sure that we have that information readily available. So, yeah, I think it's interesting to see that disconnect.
Yeah. And I think the other great opportunity that we have now to flip to the American audience, because obviously that's a critical audience that we really want to tag into as well, is that Americans are just obsessed with the concept of Australia. I don't know if they even understand why, but they just tend to really love, say the word Australia, whether it's the animals or the idea or the accent or what have you. there's something there that's magnetic to them. So when they start to meet maybe people who play in the USAFL, whether they're Americans or not, or they meet Aussies because of work or school or what have you, them just kind of talking about it, that's a great opportunity to kind of really just play into that desire and that quote unquote obsession, if you will, and kind of pull them in. So I think that we got some great magnetic opportunities for both kind of target audiences between Americans and Aussies. So I think we just got to keep pushing away and keep chugging away.
That reminds me, I saw a funny quote a while back from Russell Crowe, of all people, and he was talking about like how Americans and Aussies, uh, how they kind of talk about each other. And he's like, "Oh, Americans like Aussies, but they're also kind of scared for us because they think we're insane. And then they watch our sports, you know, Union League, AFL, and then they get really worried." So,
Yeah.
Yeah, that cultural thing I think is definitely there. I know I love Australian culture, so I love learning about it as much as I possibly can. So I think that's great to be able to integrate that and blend those two cultures together.
definitely. Well, Robbie, thanks so much for stopping by. Again, we're definitely going to hopefully have you come back onto the podcast once a few months have gone by and we're actually playing again. But we really appreciate you stopping by and sharing your story and talking about the unique perspectives that you have playing over here in the U.S. And yeah, obviously the Tiger Sharks are on social media. You guys can feel free to look them up on Facebook or Instagram. Are you guys on Twitter yet?
Do have a Twitter account. I'm not certain, to be honest, how much is being used. I think the Instagram and the Facebook are the primary, but yeah, there is a Twitter handle.
Cool. Yeah, and yeah, it's great to see them grow, and we really appreciate you being able to share some of your insights about starting a club from scratch. So we hope to catch up with you again very soon.
Yeah, sounds great, guys. Thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to meet you, Rick, Ben, and Tara. Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Robbie. Looking forward to hearing big things from you in New York. Yeah, wish you all the best.
Cheers.
Stay safe out there.
Cheers, Robbie. Take care.
Yeah.
Outside 50 is brought to you with the help of Play Aussie USA. Play Aussie is the only place in the USA you can buy the famous Sharon football, a proud sponsor of the USAFL. Visit them at playaussie.com.